Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Low Key Legends. First of all, I just want to say thank you guys for starting to listen to me, if you're actually listening to me. So, the last time it was just a little bit of an introduction, but now we're going to talk. So, I thought about where should I start? In the beginning. So, you've decided to run a campaign. Maybe you're a longtime player who has finally been put into the hot seat. Maybe you and your friends have never played before and you're trying to figure out what to do. So there's a lot of things that come into part. Where do you start? Do you read the book from cover to cover? Do you start with elusive giant maps? Do you spend like a year filling out your world and your background to get everything going? Well, I've been DMing for who knows how many years, and I think I've never read the book from cover to cover. Any of them. Nope. Not one. I've not read any RPG book from cover to cover now that I'm thinking about it. Maps? Yeah, I've made some maps. I make a few maps, but do I know everything on the map? No, I don't. Do I start off with all the powers and kingdoms? And yeah, maybe if that's what's inspired me at the moment. But a lot of times, I don't know. When people who are new to the game usually, or when I'm talking to them, or at the guild or somewhere else, and they're like, I'm starting a campaign, I notice that they put like all this stuff on like their shoulders, and they're trying to map out an entire world before they even roll a dice. Or they're trying to know the political currents of every society before they even get going. And when it comes to stuff like that, I just tend to think on the less is more kind of side. There are times I've started campaigns only knowing the starting village and the few places beyond, with just like sentences, maybe one or two to describe things beyond. I've gone whole campaigns with areas on my map that they never heard, talked about, or saw. Do I really know what's over there? I mean, like I wrote a sentence about it. Like I know that's a arid, dry area. There's like a sultan. Nah. If any of my players showed interest, then I would maybe do a little bit more. So how do you start a campaign? How do you begin? Do I choose homebrew or do I choose a campaign? Well, I think that depends on the person. That depends on you. How much time do you have to devote to making a world? How much time do you want to spend, tweaking the little ins and outs? Because regardless, even if you're running a module or one of the campaign books, and there are some really spicy ones, Curse of Strahd is probably my favorite right now. I don't think anything has Curse of Strahd just has a special place in my heart, so let's not there's definite bias there. So I'm not going to pretend like there isn't. But any of the books, Prince of the Apocalypse, Icewind Dale, Witchlight, all of those are just stories for you to use. They're all tools. And what would I tell a first-time DM? It's usually along the same lines. Hey, man, don't feel like you have to figure out everything. I think that's something that's super important. Don't feel like you need to know everything because you don't want the game to become a chore or work for you because you're doing it because you're all trying to have a good time. And when you put so much on your shoulders, I mean, there are people who are really into it. And if that is what your thing is, do your thing. I know people who have built extensive worlds, and they just keep going, and they know every political climate, and that is super awesome, and all power to them. And when I play in those games, I take full advantage of diving in to the knowledge that they have. But that's also not every player. If you have a bunch of players and none of them, you don't have any clerics, you don't have any paladins, and no one seems to be attached to any of the pantheons, don't feel like you have to build every pantheon's, structure out. You don't need to know where every temple of every god is if no one in your group's even going to pay attention to that. I mean, granted, if it's part of your story and, they're going to be doing some god killing or something like that, then it becomes important. But if it's not a focal point of your game, then just a few sentences. These Pantheon, here's the good, the bad, the ugly. That's all you need. You shouldn't have to go so crazy deep into it unless you need to. If you don't have players who aren't in political intrigue, unless a certain storyline calls for it, you don't have to map it all out. Now, granted, political intrigue is awesome. I particularly love it. And knowing how your powers interact with each other can help build a more complete world. But if that is not prudent to what's happening in the story, that's something that can happen in the background. Those are decisions you can make. Oh, well, this guy's corrupt and he's succeeding and blah, blah, blah. And then later on, you can, I don't know, they meet a town crier. The town crier explains that there is a new regime. When did that happen? And I mean, then that becomes its own pull. And if they bite, then you can go into all that. But if they go, but we still get paid for killing the goblins, right? Yes, you still get paid for killing the goblins. And they may just move on. I mean, it just happens that way. You have no idea how many times I've made these kind of hooks or poured out into these kinds of things for them never to get used. Also, don't get salty that they don't get used. It's okay. It happens. It happens to us all. It is par the course as a DM. Now, I'm not saying these things shouldn't be in your head or you shouldn't be, even take the time to consider them. But if you spend so much time on things your characters won't interact with, then that leaves less time for your campaign and your story. That leaves less time for you to put things in that they would gravitate to. So, do you already know your big bad? Your BBEG? There are times I don't know who my final villain is until when it's time to deal with them. Like, perfectly honest, it is what it is. I don't think about the big bad evil guy until I feel like it's time. I mean, sometimes I make a campaign and there's a clear, this is the bad. But a lot of times it's like, there's something shady going on in this corner over here. And now I'm going to deal with it. And now the players understand. Sometimes I've even had bad guys say they work for someone else. No idea who that someone else is or why they're doing what they're doing. But, it'll all mix in and make lemonade a little bit better in the future. But what I'm trying to say is there's no need to feel like you have to have everything ready at session 1. No need to know who they're going to fight at level 20 when they're level 2. Because they're level 2. I mean, there is a pacing is with something you'll learn. You'll get it as you go. But there's no point in overworking yourself. So where do you start? Well, start with your players. What you have at the table. Ask about their characters. Ask about their backgrounds. Give them time to give you a backstory. And then from there, you can at least start to kind of get the idea of what kind of party you're going to be in. Like if you have someone who made a character who's a devoted paladin to their lawful good deity, who then tells you that, they were orphaned, picked up by this church, followed them, and then helps other orphans and stuff like that, then that deity is going to be a big part of their thing, or at least their code is. And there should be things in the campaign that reflect that. If someone decides to make a rogue and maybe they put in their backstory that they betrayed their guild. It would be cool if rogue things happen in the future. It would be awesome if that betrayal comes back somehow. So a lot of times your players can give you the ideas you need. So instead of having to do so much, a lot of times what you really need to do is just kind of let the game organically just start to go. Have those, intro things and then see how the players are, because they're still learning who their characters are. You'll find a lot of times no character is set in stone immediately. There's a lot more that has to be done before they really know who they are. So that gives you time to prepare. And you got to understand, if you're playing weekly, you get time to think about these things during it. Now, you could be one of those, we play 2 and 3 times a week. Good for if you're playing one campaign that much. I used to be able to do it in my earlier days, but I can't do it now. My brain doesn't work that fast. But it's okay. So where you start is pretty much just where you're comfortable with. So let me tell you what I do when I start a campaign. I will discuss a campaign that I'm thinking about. I've maybe written a paragraph down for it so far. I know dragons are going to be a big focus, right? So I have dragons underlined. I know I want the area to be kind of like a cold expanse kind of thing. I want winter to like be an issue. So I looked through Icewind Dale and saw what kind of things they had for hazards. So I didn't have to make that stuff up. I'm just going to jack it right from another thing that did the work for me. As a DM, plagiarism is your friend. So what else do I know? Is there a big kingdom? Nope. But there are a bunch of villages. Do I know every village? No idea. I don't even know what territory is controlled by what dragons. I just know that dragons are like sovereigns in some areas and require tribute. I don't know yet. I don't know how these dragons are going to interact with each other yet. But the thing is, that's where they start. They'll probably be dealing with a white dragon. It's territory. So that's what I focused on. That's what I'm thinking on focusing on. So even though I may have some huge expanse in the future, and I have no idea what my final villain's going to be, I do know there's this really crazy thing I have planned in the future, and I just thought of like, hey, that'd be cool. I wrote a sentence down, and that's it. That's all I have. Am I willing to run that game? Yeah, I'm pretty much ready. I mean, granted, once I have all my players, I'm going to sit down and write the few villages and stuff out. And like I'll draw like the continent as a big thing, and I'll put some circles and dots on the field. And that's just me pretending that there are things there. And a lot of times I will decide what those are as the players need them. I'm not going to bog the whole session down with trying to figure out what goes where. And that's also, part of exploration. A lot of times when I start a game, I ask for backstories, and then I will try to weave them in as I discussed earlier. So there's a lot of work your players can do for you. And we're gonna do an episode about maps. We're gonna do an episode about making big bad evil guys, and we're gonna do all of those separately. But to me, in my opinion, a lot of that stuff is further down the road. So I just want to focus on session 1. Well, session 0. Session 1. So what is a session 0? Which, funny enough, I didn't even know there was a phrase session 0. And then someone told me, oh, yeah, you got to have a session 0. And then when I was told what session 0 was, I was like, yeah, that's a session 1. It's session 0. They're the same. So what it's literally just an introduction. Let the characters fill out who they are, maybe an introduction to the world. Let them get a feel for it, maybe a little bit of combat in there, really easy. Introductions for characters. Even before that, expectations on what the campaign could possibly be. Is it a grim dark fantasy? Are we playing, some Indiana Jones dungeon delving big riches? Is there going to be hijinks? Is this game going to be a little bit laid back and more comical? These are kinds of things you want to do early on. Definitely tone matters because you don't want someone to make your joke character in your super serious dark game, because then it just kind of throws everything off. Actually, I have a story about that. I'll tell it now. So, my friend Nick, which you've met Nick on Coffee and Crits. Nick was running a Teen Titan game, superhero game, Teen Titans. And in this Teen Titan game, the idea was going to be like kind of School of the Hard Knocks. Like all of our young heroes were going to be characters who weren't having the best go in life. So they just were kind of like at the bottom of the barrel, or things were just rough. I think one of my friends' character was like sleeping out in the park. They were like a martial artist. Another character was like living from home and like doing work on the side to help pay bills. Like my character was doing like I was a magician who also was a mage, but I got money by doing street performances in the parks. And then like every so often, like once every 2 weeks, my character would get a gig at a place to do a thing before someone else. So we all were trying to like do the right thing, but also just trying to like survive and live life. And the story was about like the Teen Titans had gone missing and eventually us stepping up and rising to the challenge. So this was very much the theme of the game. So then this person, who will remain nameless, made a billionaire cyborg whose company was like big enough to compete with like Blue Beetles and all that kind of stuff. So you understand what I'm saying? Like, so we were all like these very like grassroots, very characters. And then literally when he starts playing with us, the session comes in, he was like, yeah, I understand the grasp of it. And he comes in with this billionaire, and he actually bought the points to be a billionaire. It's actual power called wealth. And he bought it enough to have this amount of finances. So remember, my character is literally trying to, rinse due. And he comes in and he just takes like, oh, well, he did this show. I give him $20,000. And I'm like, wow. I mean, my character wouldn't say no, but you get what I mean about how that completely just changes the whole vibe of the game, where not saying his character being a cyborg was wrong, but the theme of us trying to make it through life while juggling trying to become heroes is no longer a threat anymore, because now we have this one person who literally, with one ability, takes care of all of our needs. You see what I'm saying? So now all of a sudden, you got this weird dichotomy going on between our characters. I don't know if dichotomy is the right word, but that's the word I'm going to use. Dichotomy. But correct me, please, if I use the wrong word. It's okay. I actually don't get upset when I get corrected. What? It depends on how. It depends on how. Anyway, so this character essentially takes the theme of the game and then completely makes it jarring. And Nick very much still somehow managed to pull off a great game. Very much enjoyed it. But that whole kind of ground level theme was destroyed. It was absolutely decimated. It was gone. There was no hope. Do not pass go. Do not collect. It was done. It was done. I remember lamenting with him. He was like, man, my theme. I'm like, yeah, it's dead. I mean, I'm still having a great time, and we made lemonade. But that's why setting the tone and in the beginning, like before even dice is rolled, having everyone have a great understanding is essential. But here's the thing. This is something that you don't get at once. This is something you continuously work on. I mean, even I recently have had to like, hey guys, this is the idea of the game. And there's sometimes where the communication doesn't quite hit home. So this is when just being able to talk things out helps. Just being able to have a conversation helps. Talk with your players, start like a rapport with them, let them know, hey, if I'm new, I'm new. If I'm not, I'm not. But even I still go, whoa, I shouldn't have did that thing. That's way too much. And just kind of go with it, because you're never going to not make mistakes. You're never going to not do something you don't like happen in the game. That's actually impossible. You cannot have a perfect session. Okay. One time at Jeff Con in November, I ran a perfect one shot out of over 10 years of gaming and running for 10 years. I ran one perfect session. That's it. I got one. Let's just stick on that. No. But what I'm saying is, this is just par the course. So hopefully we'll be able to do more stuff where I can try to help. What I really would like to happen soon is, if you guys have questions about starting your game or where to work things out from here, or even where to begin, I would love you guys to just drop your questions down below in the comments, or you can drop them on the Facebook, and I am more than willing to message and we can talk about your game. I love this kind of stuff. I love being able to discuss with someone what they're doing in a game. Sometimes I do it all the time. Like if I have a friend who's not in a campaign I run, I essentially use them constantly as something to bounce my ideas off of. And sometimes even just voicing them is enough to put you on the right track. You'd be surprised. Just talking to someone out loud really helps. So continue to listen, continue to watch, like. You can follow me on Facebook at DMWorld9029. You can also like, subscribe, and hit the notification for more low-key legends. You can also hit me up on the Patreon at DMWorld9029. And I hope you guys have great games. And remember, guys, the quest never ends.